And let us now discuss about armed conflict and international humanitarian law. Okay. Now, of course, if you read older books like the book of Justice Cruz, Salong Gayap, okay, Miriam, okay, so yung mga international law books before. Of course, you note that these books were written. They wrote this in the 70s and 80s, okay. And especially they are, of course, sila Salonga, sila Yap, these are, of course, they were able to encounter the Second World War, okay? So, and of course, the literature at that time is heavy on these concepts. So if you're going to look at their works, okay, you can I can me for me my view is you can consider this as a traditional. There is this so-called traditional view on the law on armed conflict. Okay, I'm using the term armed conflict because if you read the books, even the latest version of Cruz that was reprised and updated by Professor Carlo Cruz. Niretain niya niretain niya yung discussion do sa laws on war, laws on humanity, as a laws on neutrality. Because that's the traditional concept before. So ang tawag nga is laws on war. Okay, so noon, dinidistinguish kasi nila yan into three. We have laws on peace, laws on war, and laws on neutrality. So when we speak of laws on peace, of course, these are international norms and laws implemented during peacetime without any actual state of war. So kung nangyari ngayon, peacetime ngayon insofar as we are concerned, peacetime tayo ngayon. Then we have the laws on war. So these are sets of quote-unquote guidelines setting the conduct followed by warring nations or belligerent states in the course of violent hostilities and combat. Then we have laws on neutrality. Kasi pag meron ka isang gera, syempre, of course, if it is an international scale, there is an instance where sometimes you want to be part of the war, makikialay ka, or yung iba ayaw nilang makiparte sa war kasi either hindi sila naniniwala sa gera or ayaw talaga mag-participate. 'Di ba? Ang usual example niyan would be Switzerland because Switzerland is always a neutral country ever since. Okay, kaya laging neutral si Switzerland. And syempre hindi lang naman si Switzerland ayaw ang gustong maging neutral. Of course, kung ayaw nila talaga sumama sa gera, mag-neutral sila. So may concept of neutrality pag gera. Ngayon, syempre, when we speak of neutrality, merong concept yan may concept na neutrality. So we have the laws on neutrality naman din. Okay? All right. Then we have now the modern view kung iisipin nyo. So this is what I think what happened now after World War II. Tandaan natin na ano ba nangyari? Ano ba result ng World War II? We have the United Nations Charter. Okay? So the mindset always on with respect to war is, 'di ba? It's always a defensive thing. That is why, 'di ba? As much as possible, 'di ba nga ang pinaka main purpose naman talaga ng UN is to prevent World War II from happening again Okay? So syempre dun sa UN Charter, they placed mechanisms that war is going to be an egregious issue, 'di ba? That's why they placed Article 51 and 52 of the UN Charter there, 'di ba? You cannot be an aggressor. You have to confide war or you confide the you ano to confide any action, you should confine it on the basis only of self-defense, 'di ba? Then you can also make regional arrangements provided you still comply with Article 51. So yun yung isang mechanism na but of course, it does not stop from war from happening, 'di ba? It does not stop war from happening whenever, 'di ba? Yun ang mangyayari talaga doon. Siyempre, as we have said, 'di ba, do sa settlement of estates, settlement of disputes, 'di ba? 'Di ba? When we're speaking of the settlement of disputes, you know, even how much you do the effort, there might be one thing that can lead to another, 'di ba? Mahirap mag-create ng peace, especially if we're talking of two countries or two states that are really on butting heads, 'di ba? Or they're all on at odds with each other, okay? Now, of course, the modern view also recognizes the fact that, well, armed conflict can be made anywhere na, even without the formal distinctions or formalities. Kung naalala nyo, di ba, sa constitution natin, di ba, may nakalagay yan, di ba, that, of course, Congress can one of the powers of Congress, they can declare the existence of war. 'Di ba? Yun yung but that's part of the formality, 'di ba? For example, ginera ka, magpo-formal declaration ka ng war. Pero right now, 'di ba? You can and you saw this you saw this in Russia versus Ukraine. There's no use of the formality. 'Di ba nag-invade lang yung Russia, 'di ba? Or even dun sa Israel and Palestine conflict. Oh, and ang mahirap pa dun sa Israel and Palestine conflict, hindi na yung Hamas ang nag-initiate na attacks, 'di ba, no October 7. That's why we're here in this situation kasi lumalabas nagko-quote unquote vengeance tour si Israel kaya nagpapasabog ng pager sa mga militante, nagsi-surgical strike sila kahit sa Qatar, 'di ba? Kita niyo 'di ba, nag-expand na yung concept ng armed conflict 'di ba? Hindi mo na siya kailangan ng parang magde-declare ako ng war kay ganitong nation. 'Di ba kita niyo armed conflict pwede agad 'di ba? They can everything can everything can happen even without these formalities, 'di ba? Oh, tapos nangyayari ngayon like for example sa China, 'di ba? We know naman that China is now doing gray zone tactics, 'di ba? On our ship sa KIG, 'di ba? Oh, 'di ba? Nag-gray zone sila pero 'di ba isn't it that you can consider that as as possible acts na, 'di ba? Yung mga ganung bagay. I mean, no one's stopping a nation now from doing something even without a formality of a declaration. Then of course we have now the concept now of more proactive concept of your international humanitarian law as based in the Geneva Conventions. Okay? So lumalabas ngayon, 'di ba? 'Di ba naalala nyo years ago, I think mga 3 or 4 years ago. 'Di ba naalala niyo yung parang FEU player na nasabugan ng IED? Hindi IED, nasabugan ng I think parang tank mine, 'di ba? Yung mga Claymore type. Pero ang problem, hindi naman military ang nag-install nung parang booby trap or nung tank mine. Ang nag-install rebels. I think it's the CPCP NPA who owns that. Tapos 'di ba napansin nyo, nagkaroon ng if you can recall later on, nagkaroon mismo ng report I think yung CPP NPA reporting on the incident kasi applicable sa kanila din yung Geneva Conventions. Okay? So isipin mo wala although of course merong armed struggle ng NPA or yung mga MILF, 'di ba? It doesn't necessarily mean that hindi sila anong tawag diyan? Hindi sila state, non-state actor sila 'di ba? Hindi naman sila independent or kahit hindi ka belligerent, group ka lang. Kita mo bound pa rin sila dun sa bound pa rin sila sa IHL. They have to condemn it themselves or you would see that sa news from years ago 'Di ba? They have to make a statement kasi if they don't, pwede sila maging liable for IHL, 'di ba? Which can lead to one case to another. Kasi nililink mo kasi si IHL kay criminal law, kay international criminal law. Kasi 'di ba, pag pumasok ka sa international criminal law, either ma-ICC ka or magki-create yung UN tribunal para i-try ka. Although ngayon yata ang arrangement is the UN can now go to the ICC and to the ICC for referral. Although it does not stop the UN from creating their own tribunal. And we have seen that in the 1990s with what happened in Serbia and what happened in Rwanda. 'Di ba? Nag-create sila ng sariling international tribunals to try the international criminals. Okay? So magkakalink yan kasi syempre, kung nag-commit ka ng violation IHL, magigilty ka ng war crimes. Diba? Ganun ang mangyayari naman doon. So anyways, we'll discuss that along the way, okay? So of course, so what's the concept of war? So unahin muna natin discussion ng traditional concept before we go to IHL per se. Kasi kung bapansin niyo over the course of our discussion, yung mga previous treaties na didiscuss ko dito sa Law on War, they were also assumed or subsumed with the Geneva Convention. So yung principles din niya are the same. It's just that yung coverage niya ngayon, kasi pag sinabi mong war, kailangan may declaration. Kaya ang lumalabas nga, hindi ka na pwede mag-raise ng defense na wala naman dineclare na war, armed conflict lang nangyari. Hindi yun totoo kasi ngayon, pwede ka nang titingnan nila kung combatant, non-combatant ka. You're now under the scope of IHL, 'di ba? Hindi tulad no na sasabihin mo hindi ka nag-war crimes kasi internal lang, 'di ba? But it depends on the applicability. Pwede kang ma-applyan. Kaya nga 'di ba, as I said kanina, yung CPP-NPA nag-report sila about what happened, 'di ba? Nag-ano sila, parang they even denounce it or they say na they're willing to comply, 'di ba? Kasi covered sila ng Geneva Conventions nowadays. Okay? So yun ang nangyayari ngayon, okay? All right. So, of course, what is war? So, as a specific action, of course, this is an armed contention between the public forces of states and its belligerent communities, implying the use of violence to satisfy and enforce their respective demands. But of course, you can consider it as a specific status. So, war may exist even without actual armed hostilities, as long as the state shall refuse to be governed by the laws on peace. Okay? Then of course, laws on war. So ano ba principles? May mga principles yan. So of course, war should be limited in achieving the political goals that started the war. That is, for example, territorial control, and should not include unnecessary destruction. Now, war should be brought to an end as quickly as possible. Then people and property that do not contribute to the war effort should be protected against unnecessary destruction and hardship. Mamaya makikita niyo sa IHL, you'll see this in the discussion on protected persons. Okay? Then purpose. What would be the purpose of war? So it's the purpose is for protecting both combatants and non-combatants from unnecessary suffering. Then it also safeguards certain fundamental rights of persons who fall into the hands of the enemy. For example, mga prisoners of war, wounded and sick, children and civilians. Then, of course, to facilitate the restoration of peace. Okay? Then, laws on war basis. Okay, so ito yung mga basis ng laws on war. But note the Geneva Conventions So ito yung especially the 1949 Geneva Convention. Nag-evolve na siya through time because remember, later on yung IHL learning history, it goes back to the creation of the Red Cross, okay? Alright, so ito yung mga basis niya. Of course, yung latest niyan is yung Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Kasi remember, especially after World War II, di ba? Nagkaroon ng, sinasabi nila, it's also the start of the nuclear age when they bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima, di ba? So, ito yung mga basis niya, okay? Then, commencement of war. How do you commence war? So, it's either also, it's a declaration, of course, but it can be formal, it can be also implied. So, of course, when we speak of a formal declaration, it's a declaration of a state as to the existence of a state of war. Now, of course, are there instances where states can just imply the commencement? Of course, you need to make signs or manifestations like you don't want to comply or you refuse to comply with treaties. You now starting to break truces or armistices. You now reject ultimatums or deadma ka lang, di ba? Yun, tapos commission of acts of force constituting armed aggression, saka surprise armed attack. Okay? Okay. All right. So ano yung effects ng outbreak of war between two belligerent states? So, of course, the effect there is, of course, the laws of peace cease to regulate. Then the laws of war or the laws of neutrality will now apply. Then we will have termination of diplomatic and consular relations. Then treaties of political nature will be cancelled. Treaties governing war hostilities shall be activated. Then treaties of commercial and or technical or administrative matters shall be suspended. Then individuals are impressed now with enemy character, so this will subject to this concept of testing it by way of a nationality, domiciliarity, or activities test. Siyempre, pag national ka, kalabang ka, siyempre medyo iba na yung dating. Pag domiciliarity, tingnan mo kung saan siya nakatira. Yung activities, siyempre, depende do sa activities ng tao. Kung, for example, medyo espionage siya activities niya, ayan, more or less, you're be considered as an enemy. Alright? Okay. Okay. Then of course, enemy public property found in the territory of other belligerents may be subject now of confiscation. But of course, this is without prejudice to return, reimbursement, or reparation after the war. Okay. Then we now distinguish combatants and non-combatants. So of course, combatants are actually engaged in armed hostilities. Yung non-combatants are not. So however, of course, and we will discuss later sa international law, na-blur na yung distinctions, especially, of course, number one, may non-conventional warfare na. Also, we have also now massive destruction capabilities of weapons nowadays. Okay? Then, who are considered combatants? Of course, members ng regular armed forces. Then, irregular forces like guerrillas, franc-tireur, provided that they are commanded by a person responsible for its subordinates. They wear a distinguishable sign recognizable at a distance. They openly carry arms and they conduct their operations in accordance with the laws and customs of war. Then, inhabitants of the occupied territory forced to make up arms or resist invading troops, or yung tinatawag na levy en masse. Okay, then officers and crews of merchant vessels who forcibly resist attack. Okay, then conduct of hostilities. Before we conduct, so balik tayo ng konti. So mamaya di-discuss natin sa combatants. Of course, syempre, conversely, ano yung non-combatants? So usually civilians, children. We'll discuss a bit later in detail sa IHL kasi may po yung mga specific prohibitions na yan so far as the Geneva Conventions are concerned. Okay, so conduct of hostilities. Okay, so we have, of course, first one, the principle of military necessity. So employment of reasonable means and amount to defeat the enemy with efficiency. So at least loss of lives, time, or money. Then principle of humanity. So prohibition of measures not absolutely necessary for the purposes of war. So example, massacre of non-combatants, bawal yan. Destruction of artwork, you poison wells, you burn properties and looting. Then principle of chivalry, belligerents, yung belligerent states, is to give proper warning before commencing an attack, prohibiting to use of perfidy in the conduct of hostility. So, usually may rules of engagement yan. Diba? Hindi meron yan, even in a concept called war, and later on, yun yung discussion sa IHL why they exist. Okay? There would always be this concept of rules of engagement before going into going to go to your next action, di ba? All right. Now, of course, prohibited acts ng war. Of course, we have Article 23 of the Hague Convention. Okay, so aside sa special convention, it is prohibited to do this. So poison ka magamit ka ng poison or poison weapons. You kill or would treacherously individuals. Yung pinatay mo lang, wala lang. Hindi dahil barilan siya dahil sa giyera, kundi pinatay mo lang siya, walang kalaban-laban. Okay? To kill or wound an enemy who having laid down his arms or having no longer means of defense has surrendered at discretion, to declare that no quarter will be given. Mamaya, di-discuss din na sa IHL yan. Okay? So, employ arms, projectiles, or material calculated to cause unnecessary suffering, to make improper use of a flag or truce or of the national flag or military insignia of the enemy, to destroy or seize the enemy's property unless such destruction or seizure be imperatively demanded by the necessities of war, then to declare abolished, suspended, or inadmissible to the court of law the rights and actions of the hostile party. Okay? All right. Okay, so there's your prohibited acts of war pursuant to Article 23 of the 1907 Hague Convention. So you just try to look at it, okay? So, all right. Then belligerent occupation. So, what is the situation? So, it happens when a territory of one state is deemed occupied when actually placed under the control of the hostile military. Well, what would be the effect of this? So, it does not result in the transfer or suspension of the sovereignty of the legitimate government, although its functions would be suspended in the meantime. So, an invading belligerent is required to restore or ensure public order or safety while respecting the laws of such country. But it may pass on new laws and legal orders provided it does not violate on the principles of public international law. So kung naalala nyo, 'di ba, nung panahon nung World War II, 'di ba, nawala yung mga umalis sila MacArthur, 'di ba? Nag-fall yung Bataan at saka Corregidor. The Japanese came here in the Philippines for around 3 years. 'Di ba ang ginawa nila, nag-create sila ng Second Republic where the president is Jose P. Laurel, 'di ba? And merong preparatory commission sila, like member sila George Vargas, yung I think tatay ni Noynoy, lolo ni pala tayo, lolo ni Noynoy, the father of Ninoy Aquino, I think is part of this group, okay? Yan yung mga natira dito, nandito sa Pilipinas, nagstay sila, 'di ba? And quote unquote, they were compelled to, to cooperate with the Japanese. So, 'di ba, nagkaroon ng Second Republic. Ano effect ng Second Republic? Nakapag-declare sila ng mga laws, okay? Kapag-declare sila ng laws, they were able to create legislations, okay, within that period of war. Pero ano yung naging effect niya? After bumalik na yung mga Americans, 'di ba? Nag-Leyte Gulf landing until na liberate na yung Manila. Liberate na yun yung endpoint ng war sa Philippines, nung na-liberate ni Manila and they already eliminated other Japanese forces until they fled. Okay? Ang effect noon, syempre nung bumalik na yung mga Americans, and I think we discussed this a bit in Constitutional Law 1, lahat ng mga laws na ginawa or enactments nung panahon ng Second Republic, they ceased to they ceased to ano they ceased to be effective. So na-restore mo yung original regime. Okay? Na-restore mo na yung original regime when the Americans returned back to the Philippines. Okay? All right. Then kinds of warfare, we have aerial warfare, naval warfare, then land warfare. Syempre naval warfare sa sea, nung World War II, lahat ng warfare nagkaroon ng nagkaroon ng examples, 'di ba? Battle of Naval Gulf, 'di ba? Land warfare, yung Battle of Manila, 'di ba? Nagkasunog yung Manila, Battle of Besang Pass noong time ng World War II. But you note that, of course, syempre, ito we're just talking about war per se. But of course, if you're going to discuss warfare as strategy, it's important that you have air superiority, 'di ba? Pag meron ka ng air superiority, mas malaking chance manalo ka na sa giyera kasi syempre yung skies mo is the first cover, 'di ba? Pag nawala mo na yung kalaban mo sa skies, sayong-sayo na ang sky, hindi ka na mate-threaten na yung naval mo at saka land warfare mamisile na eroplano, 'di ba? Kaya 'di ba, for example, yung Six-Day War ng Israel noong 1967, anong ginawa nila? Undercover of parang surprise attack, pinasabog nila lahat ng mga eroplano ng Egyptian sa hangar, sa airfields. Nung pinasabog nila, wala nang air superiority ang Egypt. So, yung air cover lagi meron ng Israel. They were able to advance hanggang Sinai Peninsula kasi syempre kung may air attack pa si Egypt, sumugod si Israel, di nayari sila lahat ng mga mga jet fighters nila, 'di ba? Mayayari sila doon. Dahil inubos na initially ng Israel lahat ng jet fighters, clear na yung sky. So hindi na takot yung land army ng Israel to proceed. 'Di ba? Kasi alam mo yung country mo has already air superiority. 'Di ba? Yun ang diyan. Kaya kung tutuusin, dapat tayo meron tayo talaga dapat na functional Air Force. In fairness naman ngayon, well, the Air Force naman has been purchasing equipment, whether it's second hand or not, it still beats us, pero they're still okay pa rin naman, 'di ba? If you're going to look at it, they usually resell naman yan kahit naman saang parts of the world. But the point is, at least nag-iinvest tayo ngayon. Kasi especially we are an archipelagic state. We really need a functional, or if not a good air force. Kasi kailangan din natin ng cover. There was a time nga na Kaya nga hindi makatayo ang China dun sa Mischief Reef, yung ngayon may mga ano sila, may mga anong tawag diyan, yung may mga na-create na may mga ano na sila structures, 'di ba? Noon hindi nagkakaroon ng structures kasi ang ginagawa dati nung Air Force, no, meron pa tayong matinong Air Force nung 80s, 70s and 80s. They strafe that. If the Chinese will plant a flag, they are binabomb run nila 'yan. Ang problem nung medyo humina na yung ating protection, especially when the US already went out of the Philippines, medyo hindi na nagkaroon ng protection. Eventually, doon nag-creep in yung mga Chinese. Kaya nagkaroon sila ng structure ngayon. Yun ang nangyari. It's because wala tayong air superiority eh. Napapabayaan natin eh. Oh. At least ngayon, we are having assets now and material when it comes to the Air Force. At least that's something which I hope we look forward to. Wag naman sanang, well, for a lack of a better term, wag naman sana kinontrata naman siguro yung mga missiles na yan, di ba? I just hope na functioning sila, okay? Just for the defense lang, di ba? Of the country, okay? So, then of course, right to post limini, okay? Actually, just to lang, para magkaroon lang tayo ng, of course, to understand it better. Okay, so, of course, persons and things taken by the enemy are restored to its former state on coming actual to the power of the nation which they belong. So, upon the end of the, of course, belligerent occupation, the laws of the established government are revived when all acts taken by the belligerent occupant which would not legally do under the laws of nations are invalidated. Okay? All right. So, para maintindihan niyo si Post Limini, I would, if you want, you can go back and read the case of Coquincham versus Valdez Tanque. Okay, so that's a case where it explained yung kinds of de facto states, 'di ba? Kasi syempre, example, inoccupy ka na enemy territory like the Second Republic. It's technically a de facto state, 'di ba? So ano yung mga kinds of de facto states, ano yung legal effects niya? Then there's also a discussion in the Coquincham versus Valdez Tanque case on post limini. So ano mangyayari, ano yung effects ng post-war, okay? So nandun yung sa case na yon, okay? If you want to go back to that, okay? The non-hostile intercourse. So we have, of course, flag of truce, may cartels, may passport, safe conduct passes, safeguards, and license to trade. Of course, that's kind of your non-hostile intercourse. Then suspension of hostilities. How are they usually done? So we have suspension of arms. We can do an armistice, you can do a ceasefire, truce, and a capitulation. Okay? Then termination of war. So simple cessation of hostilities, natapos na lang, di ba? Pwede din na mag-sign ka ng peace treaty or accord. Okay? Then what would be the aftermath of war? So any violation of the principles of law may be tried for war crimes. Okay? Pero ang problem kasi dito is, syempre, ang nangyayari kasi, di ba, kapag nagkaroon ng war crimes, usually, yung mga nananalo, yung magde-declare kung sino nag-commit ng war crime. That is why there's this conundrum of vae victis. Parang victor's justice siya lumalabas eh. Di ba? Now, of course, it depends on how you're going to view it. Di ba? Para for example, sa Nuremberg, di ba? Nuremberg trial. Di ba? Lahat ng mga Nazis were tried as war criminals. Kasi may mga ginawa naman silang hostilities. But of course, it did not stop them from raising a defense that you're imposing something in which those who won are the ones doing the trial. 'Di ba? So parang isipin mo din in a logical sense. Sandali, bakit tinatry kami? Eh 'di ba malamang gumawa din ng hostilities yan nung nagbomba. Parang lumalabas ang dating sila yung bida. 'Di ba? Yun din yung impression, 'di ba? I mean, this is not necessarily, the example is not necessarily a war. Pero 'di ba naalala niyo yung mga modern mga war crimes tribunals. Yan din ang depensa ng mga leaders na ba't kami ang sinisisi nyo sa hostilities, 'di ba? Ganun yung dating nila ang nagdi-dictate niyan, nag-create lang niya westerners, 'di ba? Ganyan yun. Naririnig na natin yung ano na yan argument, 'di ba? So ganun din, 'di ba? As latest as si Saddam Hussein yan ang argument, 'di ba? Si Saddam. Yun ang argument niya na Hindi, ang US ang naglagay nung nung bagong leadership sa Iraq. Talagang magigilty ako, 'di ba? Oh. But of course, you have to appreciate it na lang as a matter of evidence, 'di ba? Kung talagang meron talaga siyang ginawang kahindi-kinit, may nag-testify, there would really be an international liability, 'di ba? Okay. Of course, we now go to this concept of state of neutral. So, state of peace, 'di ba? Siyempre, pag nagkaroon ka pag wala ka na sa peace, war ka. Pero siyempre, dahil nga may iba ayaw mag-participate ng war, may neutrality na concept. So, of course, a state is considered neutral if it does not take part directly or indirectly in a war between other states. So, under present circumstances, after the two world wars, neutrality should be perfect and absolute on the part of the neutral state. So, of course, as I said, like Switzerland, it's also a policy sometimes of a state, di ba? Kasi ang problem kasi, even if you declare yourself neutral, sometimes it doesn't stop an aggressor state from attacking you. And I think that happened in World War II. I think Norway declared neutrality, but they were still invaded, di ba? May mga ganun eh. Pwede kasi i-violate yung law on neutrality. Okay? Ang hindi lang nila, ang naalala ko na sa World War II, hindi nila sama sa gera si Switzerland, 'di ba? Oh. Anyways, of course, what's the difference between neutrality and neutralization? Of course, neutrality is dependent solely on the attitude of the neutral state. It is governed by the general law of nations. Of course, it happens during war, and only states may be declared neutral. On the other hand, of course, neutralizations. Of course, neutralization is a result of a treaty or an agreement providing the terms and conditions of neutralization. As a treaty, it is binding between signatories. It obtains both in war and also peace, and other territorial portions of state may be neutralized. Okay? So, ibig sabihin nito, pag sa peacetime, parang wala lang sila doon, di ba? Hindi nagkakaroon ng neutralization. But it's more of an agreement type of thing. Sa neutrality kasi, pag nagkaroon ka na ng state of war or meron ka, kick in si laws on war plus si laws on neutrality. Okay? Then, basis ng laws on neutrality, 1856 Declaration of Paris, 1907 Hague Convention, then unratified Declaration of London of 1909. Okay, so what will be the relations of the warring or belligerent states and neutral states? So what would be the rights of a neutral state? So the right is to abstain from armed hostilities and giving aid to either belligerent states. Then prevent its territory and other resources from being used by belligerent states. Then acquiesce upon certain conditions and limitations that belligerents may require in connection with international commerce. Then what would be the responsibilities of belligerent states? So, of course, the warring or the belligerent state has to respect the neutral status of the neutral state, and it should submit into lawful measures to maintain its neutrality. Okay. Of course, now we go to this concept of international humanitarian law or armed conflict. Okay. Of course, everything's armed conflict, but of course, right now, the term being used now in textbooks is armed conflict or international humanitarian law. Okay? So, what would be now the basic principle? So, of course, ano ba pala yung history nitong tong IHL? It all started with the founding of the Red Cross. Magka-link si several Geneva Conventions. I think there are already 4 or 5. I think there are already four types of Geneva Convention because iba-iba 'yon. Pwede kasing sa conduct of, kasi nagsimula lang yan sa conduct of hostilities. It expanded sa conduct sa non-combatants, conduct sa mga other persons, anong conducts. Tapos ngayon, of course, it's continuingly evolving. Considering that, of course, di ba nga, kanina, diniscuss natin, yung war, nagkakaroon ng iba ng concept eh. Di ba? Especially that weapons are improving, di ba? You can create larger weapons or more sophisticated weapons, di ba? We don't know if weapons would be like what you see in Star Wars or Star Trek, di ba? May mga ganun eh. It's a constantly moving post eh. Depending on the signs of the times eh. Okay. So nagsimula yan I think it started with the Battle of Solferino in 1859. So this was the first war in which, sobrang parang alam mo yun, na media coverage yung na media coverage yung battle na yun. Nakita yung horrors talaga ng war. It was then that I think si Jean Henry Dumont, okay, if I can recall, if he's that person, okay, Yan, he thought about the idea of creating number one, an aid in the case of this these armed conflicts, as well as crafting laws on war. Okay? So, kaya nagkaroon ng international Red Cross, 'di ba? Nagkaroon na siya we had this Red Cross already. At the same time, it also started the creation of the Geneva Conventions. Okay? So hand in hand 'yan si Red Cross at saka si Geneva Conventions. Okay? Then with this, we have the basic principles now of IHL. So number one, ano ba basic principles? Kailangan identify mo civilians and non-combatants. Tapos hindi ka pwede mag-attack ng horde combat. Okay? Malaman natin kung sino si horde combat mamaya. Okay? Then, the prohibition to inflict unnecessary suffering, the principle of necessity, and the principle of proportionality. Okay? Pero may inherent limit siya. Okay? It does not prohibit the use of violence. Kaya may tanong usually sa armed conflict eh. Dito especially sa IHL. Sandali, 'di ba ang IHL patayan yan eh. Seryoso, 'di ba? May giyera yan eh. And it does not prohibit the use of violence. So, why create rules? 'Di ba? Gusto mo manalo, 'di ba? You have to maximize the way how you're going to kill the enemy, 'di ba? Totoo naman, 'di ba? If you're going to look at it in pero sinasabi kasi syempre the reason why we have IHL is of course to go back to these principles, 'di ba? Na you have to, although hindi maiiwasan ang giyera, as much as possible, try to prevent atrocities or hostilities as much as possible. That's why there is this concept of rules. Okay? And at the same time, syempre, kung nagkakaroon ka ng conflict, 'di ba? You're having a conflict between one state to another. Well, sometimes war is inevitable. There is the need to, well, quote unquote, have bloodshed. Diba? But of course, sabi nga, 'di ba, as much as possible, war should be as short as possible. It should not be a protracted long conflict, okay? Of course, another inherent limit is it cannot protect those affected by an armed conflict. It makes no distinction based on the purpose of yun nga, sinasabi ko, 'di ba? Wala na siyang distinction nowadays, 'di ba? It does not bar a party from overcoming the enemy, and it presupposes that the parties to an armed conflict have rational aims and that those aims do not contradict IHL. Okay? Then, dito na tayo ngayon. So, who are considered as combatants? Napansin niyo iba dito, nakalista kanina dun sa diniscuss natin na previous slides, di ba? Of course, regular armed forces, regular forces, okay? So, yung mga but of course, we have to distinguish, of course, international law experts would say that, well, of course, combatants, of course, that is to say, okay, they have the right to participate, participate directly in hostilities. So, in fact, combatants are allowed thus to engage in hostilities, okay? Thus, a combatant is allowed to use force even to kill and will not be held responsible, okay? Personal response for his acts, as he would be do so as a regular citizen. Because anyone who uses force against the enemy is not a combatant. Well, kung hindi siya combatant, he cannot claim the privileges of combatant status, for he is personally liable for his actions subject to restrictions of its national law. Kaya may distinction eh, 'di ba? Kasi baka iba non-combatant biglang pwede siya may issue on liabilities kasi diyan, 'di ba? Kailangan magkaroon ka ng identity. Kasi syempre kung combatant ka, nakapaggiyerahan ka, well, it's understood, 'di ba, that if that happens, example, matapos yung giyera, mag-armistice, 'di ba? Or mag-truce kayo. Hindi mo habulin yung mga sundalo, 'di ba? Kung example, may IHL, may crimes against humanity. Baga, parang ang default setting kasi, ginawa mo yun dahil giyera eh. Okay? Now, whether or not magkaroon ka ng complaint, okay, it's another story. Kasi syempre, usually naman, ang nagiging liable naman sa complaints would be not necessarily the soldiers, but usually those who are in command, 'di ba? Mga generals or leaders, 'di ba? Mga heads of state. Kasi, 'di ba, if you can recall, 'di ba, Yamashita, may tinatawag na command responsibility na tinatawag, 'di ba? Oh. 'Yun ang nangyayari. Pero syempre, doon sa concept ng combatants ka, syempre, Pero pag magiging liable ka kasi nagpatayan kayo sa giyera, 'di ba? I mean, yung parang gano'n yung mindset eh. Parang you're going to kill each other. It's justified because it happened in a state of war eh, 'di ba? Yun ang nangyayari. Yung nga lang, of course, this is without prejudice to, of course, yung mga leaders, mga head of state, pwede silang managot din kung makitaan sila na may abuses sila, 'di ba? Okay. Then who are considered as protected persons, okay? So, yun nga, sabi ko sa'yo, nagrami ng evolution yung Geneva Convention. I think there are already 4 Geneva Conventions. So, of course, ano na yung protected person? So, of course, the wounded, sick, and shipwrecked. So, this is under your first and second Geneva Conventions. Prisoners of war under your third convention. Civilians under the fourth convention. So, for purposes of protection, civilians are classified as civilians who are victims of conflicts in countries involved under the fourth Geneva Convention, and civilians in territories of the enemy, and civilians of occupied territories, as well as civilian internees. Okay? Then, of course, ano ba yung horde combat? Nakalagay sa principle na hindi na di ba kanina we have 2 points that you are prohibited to attack horde combat. So, ano ba yung horde combat? Okay? A person who is recognized or of course considered as horde combat shall not be made subject or object of attack. So a person is a horde combat if he is in the power of an adverse party, he clearly expresses an intention to surrender, or he has been rendered unconscious or is otherwise incapacitated by wounds or sickness, and therefore is incapable of defending himself, provided in any of these cases he abstains from any hostile act and does not attempt to escape. Okay. Now, when persons entitled to this protection as prisoners of war have fallen into the power of an adverse party under unusual conditions of conduct which prevent their evacuation, okay, they shall be released and all feasible precautions shall be taken to ensure their safety. So, aside dun sa protected persons, hindi ka pwedeng mag-attack or hindi mo pwedeng patulan ang tao na walang kalaban-laban. Kahit sabihin nating enemy color siya or meron siyang enemy affiliation during the war. Hindi ka pwede, pag buhay pa siya, hindi mo pwedeng banatan na agad, patayin, di ba? So, kailangan proteksyonan yan. It's a defenseless person that is protected under international humanitarian law. Okay? Then of course, what would be the limitations on the syempre may limitation, yung Geneva Conventions, okay? They already stated limitations as to the means of warfare and conduct of hostilities. So, weapons, methods, or means of warfare. So, it is prohibited to employ weapons, projectiles, and material and methods of warfare to a nature to cause superfluous injury or unnecessary suffering. It is prohibited to employ methods or means of warfare which are intended or may be expected to cause widespread, long-term, and severe damage to the natural environment. Then, of course, there is this concept of prohibition of no quarter. So, it is prohibited to order that there will be no survivors or to threaten an adversary therewith or to conduct hostilities of its basis. So, ibig sabihin ng no quarter, example, nag-invade ka ng city, pinatay mo lahat ng tao. Kung naalala niyo yung Balanggiga Massacre, that's an example of no quarter, 'di ba? Ano sabi ni General Jacob Smith? I-round up lahat ng lalaki, patayin lahat yung below the age of 8, 'di ba? And make summer a howling wilderness. That's an example of a no quarter act, 'di ba? That's a violation of the Geneva Conventions. And even before, it's really a violation, okay? Alam ko na court martial si General Smith, 'di ba, after that eh. Okay, but of course that's within a US jurisdiction. But that's the point there. You cannot do something that you're going to order for there will be no survivors dun sa ore. Parang ano tawag diyan? Parang no ano siya eh. Tawag lang parang take no prisoners ang dating niya eh, 'di ba? That's also what you can consider is a take no prisoners approach. This is prohibited under IHL, okay? Then basic principles of protection of civilian populations in armed conflicts. So, of course, fundamental human rights, okay, shall continue to apply in situations of armed conflict. In the conduct of military operations during armed conflicts, a distinction must be made at times between persons actively taking part in the hostilities and civilian populations. In the conduct of military operations, every effort should be made to spare civilian populations from the ravages of war, and all necessary precautions should be taken to avoid injury, loss, or damage to civilian populations. Civilian populations as such should not be the object of military operations. Dwellings and other installations that are used only by civilian population should not be the object of military operations. Then places or areas designated for the sole protection of civilians, such as hospital drones or similar refuges should not be the object of military operations. Now, then, civilian operations or individual members thereof should not be the object of reprisals, forcible transfers, or other assaults on their integrity. The provision of international relief to civilian populations in conformity with the humanitarian principles of the Charter of the United Nations, with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other international instruments in the field of human rights. Then the Declaration of Principles of International Humanitarian Relief to the Civilian Population in Disaster Situations, as laid down in, of course, in the Red Cross resolution, shall apply also in situations of armed conflict, and all parties of conflict should make every effort to facilitate this application. Okay. Then, of course, there is this concept also, finally, there is this concept of a Martens Clause. So, what's a Martens Clause? So, until a more complete code of the laws of war has been issued, the high contracting parties, okay, deem it expedient to declare that in cases not included in the regulations adopted by them, the inhabitants and the belligerents remain under the protection and the rule of law of nations, as they result from the usages established among civilized peoples from the laws of humanity and the dictates of public conscience. Okay? So you place this as an uh, this can be an agreement which would prevent, there is this this is seem to be a waiver, okay? But we have to notice, of course, this as explained in and explained in the advisory opinion in the nuclear weapons case, okay? Of course, it recognized that the Martens Clause of course, it was recognized. Of course, the ICJ recognized, insofar as this case or advisory opinion is concerned, that the Martens Clause has proved to be an effective means of addressing the rapid evolution of military technology. Thus, a weapon does not contravene any existing rules of treaty, IHL, could nevertheless be considered unlawful if it were found to be contrary to the principles of international law as derived from custom, the principles of humanity, or dictates of public conscience. So, of course, the Martens Clause makes clear that the general principles and values that are transpired the restriction of warfare throughout history remain valid also in the face of today's rapidly developing weapons technology. So, for example, while IHL does not expressly restrict the permissibility of autonomous weapon systems, serious ethical challenges requiring consideration from the perspective of humanity and public conscience, quote unquote, may as well arise when it comes to delegating it in itself. Therefore, the Martens Clause nevertheless provides essential guidance for interpreting, applying, and amending individual provisions in line of the objects and purposes of the IHL as a whole. Okay, so that is it for our discussion on armed conflict and international humanitarian law. Okay?